Okay. All right, we're up. Hey, everybody. The Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today on my birthday month, everybody. It's my birthday week, actually. I'm so excited about that. So grateful. Look, Lord, give me the 17th. Let me have yet another year. And my love to all of my birthday people. And sending a love to Shannon Doherty. Just found out, that she passed away. So many of us grew up in the 90s, even though I was grown, kind of grown, a very, very young person, just getting out of school. She made her transition having struggled with cancer for many, many years. Of course, many of us remember her from Beverly Hills 90210. But boy, these markers in our lives, no matter where you are, they help you to understand who you are, where you are. Everybody, like and share this show. Like and share this show on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook, and on the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. The Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. Hey, Andre. Hey, Lorraine. Sweet Lorraine. She and her husband are like the Black Ken and Barbie. They are both gorgeous. And they have these gorgeous children who are so well behaved. They're lovely young men now. Love it. Love you, girl. Everybody like and share. Lorraine, get everybody to like and share. And let's get into some conversation. There was a game changer. Boy, this past weekend, we keep having these whiplash moments in, I guess, in the final fourth, if you will, final fourth quarter. Well, no, third quarter. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway of this campaign. We thought the this really dismal performance by President Joe Biden was the game changer, and it was for this campaign. But now you've got this assassination attempt um, on former President Donald Trump's life. There are many, many questions about it, about the protocols that were breached. Many. You see a lot of speculation because that is the nature of the beast today. Media has become more democratized as much as they try to censor it. So you have a lot of people who have a lot of expertise for saying a lot of things, who are making you ask a lot of questions. And just as laypersons, you have a lot of questions about how this could have happened. When I lived with the Secret Service, or should I say when they lived with our family, with our father, and therefore they lived with us, we were all in school at the time, they would remove mailboxes from the block that you were on. And because Reverend was so threatened, I mean, his Secret Service contingency was second in size and scope only to that of the president's. So we had a real live crew with us. And, you would see marksmen and women on buildings whenever he'd go someplace, particularly if the threats were heightened. And in Reverend's case, they always were. So I'm trying to figure out how someone could get so close and why, as people were walking into the venue, they said, we see someone over there, and no one responded. I don't know. That's what's happening with the press reports. But now, how is it going to reshape former President Trump's message? He said, I had a speech prepared for Milwaukee. The convention, of course, is this week. He said, now I'm throwing it out. I'm going to talk about national unity. Now you've got President Biden, who's spoken twice, national unity. What is going on, everybody? Yeah, I'm a little paranoid. And thanking God that nothing happened to President Trump. He did have an injury, but he's okay. But a man protecting his wife and children, he did lose his life, a firefighter. We pray for that family. Others were injured. We pray for them. They had every right to be there. They certainly did not deserve that. So, Andre, how you doing? Lorraine, sweet Lorraine. Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. Let us not forget that. Love you, girl. John Holloman. You said many questions. We have them. Robert Williams, CLS, out there in LA. Hey, we're going to be up on a station in LA pretty soon. Velma Rimmer, peace and love to you. Respect you. Carol Soskin, my sister from another mister out there in the hills of Beverly. Everybody, like and share the show. Like and share the show. Like and share the show right now, right now, right now. Like and share the show, please. Of course, we have got a tremendous panel from the National Conference of Black Lawyers, Attorney Mark Fancher, the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Darrell Jones. We had a great time in Las Vegas. He treated 1,000 of us to lunch on Saturday. I said, wait a minute. Am I missing something here? I think I'm going to have to marry you, Darrell. Isn't that terrible? My mother would say that. She's like, wait a minute, I like that. Isn't that awful? That's a mom for you. What can I tell you? That's a mom. But thank you, because you were a wonderful host. But we had a great time. It was just, and I stayed with him all day because my flight, I caught a red eye that was late. Oh, so I have not been to bed yet, everybody. I haven't been to bed in a true bed in like more than 24 hours. And I don't drink coffee, but the Lord gives me energy. Attorney Robert Patillo, National Rainbow Push Coalition, and of course, host of his own show from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday on WAOK. And of course, Attorney Darrell Jones is on WOL along with Barbara Arnwine every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Check them out. And Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway. Boy, oh boy, have I got the 2 Live crew with us this morning. I cannot wait to hear what y'all have to say about this. Paula Garcini Zipser. Hey, hi all. Hi y'all. All right. Well, you know what? Who do I start with? My favorite little conspiracist. Let me start with you, Attorney Mark Fancher. I'm just going to go straight across the line. You know, I'm having fun with you, Mark. How you doing this morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
Oh, well, talk to me. Miss Wanda down there in North Carolina sending you so much love. Everybody like and share the show. Like and share the show. When you're on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. Meet me on Twitter at Santita J, at Santita J. And you know what? I'm going to start having you all sign in also with your handle so people can get in touch with you. At Santita J on X, please meet me over there. And then continue to like and share the show. Like and share the show. And of course, on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook, please become my friend there. That's the only page where I can accept friends. Attorney Mark Fancher, what do you make of what happened on Saturday? There was a lot. I brought up a lot of questions. A lot of people have a lot of questions. Um, and it takes us to, a moment that we have, I guess, every couple of generations in American life, where you have these political assassinations. You have them every place else, but there you go.
Yeah, I do have theories about things, but I try to ground my theories in facts. I try to deal with what's actually known. Sometimes people think that I'm speculating, and it's not because I'm making up things. It's because I may be drawing on facts that are just not widely known or are not widely circulated. And they may sound speculative or outrageous to many people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm reluctant at this point to uh, have a theory that is in any way different from the narrative that we've been given, only because I don't have any facts.
Mm-hmm.
I do allow for the possibility that other things more nefarious have happened that are contrary to what they've been telling us about this young man and what he did or what he's alleged to have done. But I just don't know that. So I don't have a cogent theory about anything other than what the popular narrative is right now.
But how did it strike you? I mean, when you heard, because Darrell and I and some of our friends were at lunch on Saturday, and we started getting these phone calls. Did you hear what happened to Trump? Did you hear what happened to Trump? Which completely changed the whole tone and tenor of Darrell, of course, of what we were talking about. It changed the whole conversation because you were like, whoa, what does this mean for? Does this mean that Trump has won? I mean, has this garnered a lot of sympathy for him? I mean, what about that view? I mean, what are you hearing from people?
Well, I have been saying for a long time, I didn't anticipate that it would be because of you know, a crime or something like that. But I've anticipated and said, and people have laughed, that Trump is not going to be the nominee for the Republican Party. I've said that Biden is not going to be the nominee for the Republican Party. So the prospect of
Well,
him,
Democratic Party. That was a
I'm
Freudian
sorry,
slip.
yeah, yeah, no, I'm trying to stay with the times. That's what you do these days. Uh,
Having
yeah,
fun.
but yeah, I didn't think either of them were gonna be on the ballot. So I didn't really think so much about that. I really focused less on the politics of this than on this young man who is accused of having fired the shot. I don't really know how political it is based on what we know. It sounds to me very much like many of the other mass shootings and other acts of violence that we've seen on an almost monthly basis over the last number of years, where people are shooting up schools and shopping malls and whatever. It's yet another young alienated white male who's decided to get violent. And in this case, it just happened to be a major political candidate. And for me, the concern and the question that I've raised is whether the United States has defaulted to what has become a very bad habit of sinking into denial about anything that troubles them or anything that disturbs them. And I think in this case, um, because of Europe's bad history, of the complicity of the church in the oppression of workers in Europe, and the commitment that many have had in this country to the separation of church and state, that notion, that idea has found its way into the popular culture of white America, and not just with respect to trying to ensure the integrity of government, but there has been a divorce from religion and spirituality from many aspects of life. And I think that because of it, that white popular culture in this country, and I'm not speaking in absolutes, I'm not talking about all white people, but I think that the popular culture that has come out of that community has become spiritually dead. And I think that it is in the root cause of a lot of the alienation that many white youth experience and feel because they are bullied, because they are left alone, because they are ostracized and marginalized in individual cases. Then they feel alone. They have the chance to internalize a lot of self-pity. They wallow in self-pity. They feel alienated, and you add to that the privilege that they enjoy, where they're allowed to do that without any consequence, and it causes them to develop these types of emotional problems, this alienation. Compared and contrasted with someone who is connected to God, who never feels alone, who in some cases, if their spirituality is highly developed, if their theology is highly developed, really regards it as something of a badge of honor to be left alone and to be shunned and alienated by the world, because Jesus in particular said that his way and the world's way, there is no collaboration there. Those things don't go together. And so, to the extent that the world shuns you, you applaud that. You're glad about it. You celebrate it. You don't become a person who's totally alienated, someone who's hostile, someone who's resentful. And so I think that, to me, is the real problem, is the spiritual death of the country. And nobody's willing to deal with that. When these things happen, then they resort immediately to issues of gun control, or resort immediately to issues of mental health, which is certainly a factor. I'm not discounting it. But what is the cause of the mental disturbance? That's really the root cause. And I think that the idea that, as Dr. King said and evaluated the country, that it is a country that in his time was approaching spiritual death. I think it's there.
Well, he
And
said if we did not stop, if we didn't get off the road that we were on in his time, In our time, he said this is coming quickly. And so for now, he was prophesying, right? I mean, he was
Yes.
saying, not in the, he said you all. He was trying to tell us who are going to become adults or who are going to grow into our years or have children. This is where you're heading if you don't stop. He said it won't be long, right?
Yes. Yes. And I think we've arrived. And I don't. I also think that we're not prepared to address that or deal with it. It's not the right. It's not considered the politically correct thing to talk about or to deal with. But I
Mhm.
think in a very real way, it accounts for the alienation, the hostility, and the resentment that's found among so many in the younger generation. They just don't know God. They have no, and I'm not telling anybody what they should believe or how they should believe, but uh, whether you believe in God or don't believe in God, the fact is that people who do and who have that kind of relationship don't tend to go down this type of a violent road and engage in acts of random and gratuitous violence.
Attorney Daryl Jones, your thoughts about this?
Well, Santita, as we were together with a group of people when it occurred, and interestingly, um, the group that we were with, right, were many of the political types and policy people, and the response was a number of responses. One, of course, there was great sadness and concern for the former president, and grateful that he survived the shooting. At that point, of course, we didn't know that it was a 20-year-old white Republican male that did this. We had no idea. But interestingly, one of the thoughts that immediately came out, and I just wonder how it was received across America, one of the thoughts that immediately came out was, I hope it's not a person of color that did this.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
if it was a person of color that did this, then everything could just jump off at that point. That the whole movement, the country would just be shattered, and everything that would then take off from that point. And what became interesting as I had a chance to sit back and just think about that, is asking the question of where are we actually? Because if we're saying that if this had been a person of color that had done this, that the country would have just fallen apart completely. Where are we then with our political discord, our political discussion in this country? What does it mean? Does it, is it symbolic of the racism that's right at the level now? It's no longer below the surface; that it's above the surface. There's so many pieces I think that begin to unfold when we take that as our initial consideration of what if it had been a person of color that had done this? What if it had been a Muslim that had done this? What the response would have been. So when I hear about this, and of course, all the condolences to the young guy the guy that protected his children and lost his life, as well as the others that were injured. But it really should cause us to just pause for a moment and raise the flag of concern as to where we actually are, what all the vitriol and the politics has meant, what the racism and all the politics has meant. I think all of that, we then begin to deal with. I agree with Mark to a degree. I think he mentioned some of the mental health issues that may be at place. I don't want to throw out mental health issues right now with regards to this shooter, to this killer, because we don't know that they existed. I'm not there on talking about the mental health. If we're talking about the mental health of us politically, yeah, I'm there with that. I think that's one of the things that we've got to take a look at. I think that President Biden, when he was speaking, and they're talking about trying to roll back some of the vitriol and all the blame game with the vitriol, that's not where we need to be. I think that we need to be dissecting the politics of this, the politics of the vitriol, what has led up to the point that we would be saying, thank goodness it's not an African American that did this, and what the country would have done if it was. Those are my immediate thoughts on what's happening on that part, Santita. And then, of course, we go into the strategies pieces to it.
And then and tilting towards civil war, because
and
that's
tilted
that,
towards
that
civil war.
the fear. But I think more than mental health, I think that even you put that to the side, Mark, before I go to you, Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway. You were talking about the spiritual health. You said, I mean, spiritually, we are in a bad place, and no one really wants to acknowledge that. I mean, a country gets the leadership they deserve. We're manifesting where we are. You keep hearing these leaders saying, "This is not who we are." I'm like, this is exactly who we are. Come on, you guys. The vitriol is on all sides. That's why I don't like the name calling Donald Trump out of his name, referencing his tan and all of that. You don't want it. We don't want it done to us. Stop. Either we're going to be what we need to model, what it is that we want to be, or we're as bad as our oppressors. I don't know what else to say. Mark, you want to say something before I pivot to?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying is that I agree with Daryl that we don't know about the mental health of this particular individual, but in so many of these incidents where there have been people who have engaged in violence, they have concluded that that may be an issue. And my comment is really to the point that if that is an issue, what causes the mental health? And sometimes that is because people feel alone, isolated, their basic needs or emotional needs are not met, and they lack a certain spiritual toughness and protection that would, if they had it, prevent them from drifting into a mental state that causes them to become destabilized.
Mm. Tennessee State Representative G.A. Hardaway. What do you make of it? I mean, because it's interesting. Daryl's basically in Detroit. Excuse me, Mark is in Detroit. Daryl is in Las Vegas, but he is from D.C. You're in Tennessee. I mean, I think we're getting, because we all absorb our environments. And so, what are you hearing? I mean, and
Well,
what was your initial reaction when you heard about this?
my initial reaction was that this may have been staged. That was my honest reaction.
Why?
And I decided to hold any public comment until we had more facts in that were verified by more than one source.
Well, hold
But
on. What in your experience would make you think that? Because that's you're not way off. A lot of people have had that feeling.
Well, I guess I'm from the old school of they show you who they are, believe them, and I'm looking at the past conduct of former President Trump, and I'm suspicious. I'm cynical about anything he says or does.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the long run, we'll find that this won't blow over, but it will be overtaken by the political strategies that follow the pollsters. That if this plays well for the former president, then he'll stay with this. If it doesn't, he'll revert back to being who he is and showing us who he is. I still believe that he's concerned about one thing and one thing only, and that's staying out of jail, and that the presidency is just a way to get there. I do want to extend, having had time to digest a lot of the news, I want to extend my condolences to the families, including Trump's family, but certainly to the gentleman who was killed, and to the other two that we know about who were injured. I think the fact that you can't show up to support your candidate at a rally without fear of death or injury, that's a sad commentary on where we are. There's several questions which beg to be answered. I think one is, why do we have these lone wolves who tend towards violence to express themselves. I would say that some of what we've seen up to now versus what we're going to see going forward, we haven't seen the tip of the spear yet. We've had this discussion before where COVID was terrible, but post-COVID is in some ways even worse because we're not acknowledging the danger of young folks who did not get a chance to become socialized, did not get a chance to develop in a normal pattern that would yield what we consider to be normal behavior. And we're going to see more of it if we don't focus our resources on those deficiencies in the development of our young folks. And that's from, we've had studies that were just released last week that indicated that children who were not in school, but who started late, have been negatively impacted by the isolation of the COVID pandemic. So we've got some issues, but we need to figure out how many different approaches to take to resolve these issues. And we can't do that unless we just take that broad brush and say we've got problem here, problem there, problem everywhere, and allocate the necessary resources to address it.
Well, I think we need to take the, I guess, the 30,000-foot view, if you will. I mean, there is the weeds view, and then there's this aerial view, right? Because there were so many. The reason I think many of us have so many questions is because there were so many security failures. And we keep hearing about that. We hear October 7th, security failure. The biggest, baddest people in the intelligence game is the Mossad. How did you have a failure that magnificent when you'd been told about it so far in advance? And then how does they call him a sniper? A sniper is someone who's very specific. First of all, snipers are chosen from amongst the best marksmen and women. You don't become a sniper. You're chosen to go to sniper school. So who was this 20-year-old who many, as they remember him from high school, he was isolated, and which takes me back to you, Mark, and to you, to the whole panel. This sense of, because I'm having a bad day, I feel I have the right to kill people. Or maybe because I disagree with you, I have the right to take your life. And I'm feeling some kind of way about it because I had people who would call our house, not for fun, but for real, and say, hi, little girl, how you doing? Hi, how are you, sir? But how may I help you? Because, I was taught how to answer the phone. When you're about 7 or 8, this is how you do it. And routinely, I talked to Donzale Abernathy. She had the same thing. She said every night for dinner, somebody would call and say they were going to bomb our house. This is Reverend Dr. Ralph Abernathy's daughter, Dr. King's best friend and right hand. And little girl, how you doing? How did school go today? Fine, sir. How can I help you? Is your father home yet? No, sir. Well, you make sure that his blank does not come home. I saw him in his trench coat today because I'm going to blow his effing brains out. So, do I tell my mother? Because I don't want to upset her. Do I call Daddy? Because, we're about to have dinner, but Daddy, I don't want you to come home. Because if coming home means that you're going to get killed, stay away. Come on, y'all. I don't want to hear any more. Mark Fancher, Attorney Daryl Jones, State Representative G.A. Hardaway. This is not who we are. This is exactly who we are. Mark?
Well, yes, we are, and that's the history of this country. I mean, it is rooted in gratuitous violence, mass violence. They didn't just come over and ask if they could just take huge swaths of territory in North America to establish this country away from civilizations that had been here as far back as anybody knows. No, they did it with violence. They didn't go over to Africa and ask everybody if they would just get on the ship and go over to a place where they could be enslaved and brutalized and killed No, they did that with violence, and they did that with violence once they were here. And they have in the belly of this beast extended its tentacles to all corners of the world and engaged in gratuitous imperialist violence all over the place. And the most obvious and the most current manifestation of that is genocide in Gaza, where one of the leading candidates for the presidency has been largely responsible for the mass murder of thousands and thousands of Palestinians. So violence, as H. Rap Brown said, is as American as cherry pie. And it is not surprising that when individuals who have grown up in this type of an environment, in this type of a country, when they don't have a clue about what life is really all about what their real responsibility is to other human beings, decide that when they become dissatisfied or unhappy, then they should act out in violent ways. And that's exacerbated by the belief by those who have been promised white privilege that's appropriate. Because white privilege as a concept is real for most white people, but it is not uniform. There are some that are more privileged than others. And this expectation that exists among many who don't get the full-blown white privilege treatment, when they don't get it, they feel cheated and they look for ways to act out. So I think that, this is not really totally surprising when we see it unfold in this way.
Well, I'm going to pose this question to all of you. How do you see State Representative Hardaway, this push from President Biden and former President Trump for unity? Unity around what? I mean, what are they talking about? What is that? And why did you just in exasperation push that button to unmute yourself? You just looked at me like I was crazy.
Well, you hit
the question. You saw there, everybody saw him looking at me like he was like tossing your head from side to side, like, girl, please. Just say girl, please, and then answer.
Look, Santita.
Thank you.
And this is why I took 24 hours before I responded. As I shared with you earlier, I was so cynical. I thought that it was all staged and taking advantage of the cult that he leads. I don't believe that he can sustain the image that his campaign team wants him to project. I think we'll see the same guy shortly.
You mean and with your fist in the air?
And let's talk about that.
Okay.
You have a team of Secret Service agents whose job is to put their lives in front of you to take that bullet. Now, instead of letting them do their job and be covered and leave and seek the safety of the vehicle, the SUV, you start politicking. That if you're not following their protocols in the middle of the danger, I have no faith that you're going to follow the fake, what I think is the fake strategies that you said you're going to follow about unity. I don't believe he's going to do it. I think he's going to do whatever he needs to do to stay out of jail. And that means win the presidency at all costs. But I want to say again, it was a tragic situation. My condolences to the families, those who had their member taken from them and those who were injured. But at the end of the day, we are not going to see a different Trump. He's going to morph and be the chameleon that he thinks will get him the votes that he needs to become president, to stay out of jail.
Well, let me posit something else to the panel, because with the fight, blood on your face, um, I even saw something else, Representative Hardaway and Attorney Jones and Attorney Fancher, because now I see my father, former Big Ten athlete, University of Illinois, 1959, helping desegregate America's top schools, 6'2", 220 pounds. He's always had so much physical strength, quarterback at North Carolina A&T. And there's so much that my family have read into having an able-bodied father, and a tall, big guy at that, right? And I saw how he fought against being in that wheelchair. And he would force people, no, stand me up. I don't want people to see me here.
Hmm.
And it was heartbreaking, because I was, Dad, you stand taller in your wheelchair than anybody I know. There's nothing else for you to prove. The fact is, you're still fighting for us from here. And so, but he did not want people to see him in a physically weakened condition, because we read so much into that. I mean, that's what happened with FDR, and even Teddy Roosevelt, as history helps us to remember, he was shot. Remember, when he was a
Hmm.
Liberty Party candidate, and the only thing that really deflected him from serious injury was his eyeglass case that was in his pocket. But he was injured, and he got up and said, look, I feel so strongly. I've been shot, but I'm gonna keep on talking until I'm finished with this speech. And then when they got him in the car, then he collapsed, right? So do you think he was doing that for the audience? Because even while they were doing that, as I was listening to just different news accounts of this, physically he was vulnerable. Because you don't know if it was one shooter or multiple shooters. There's so much you don't know in real time, right? Because you heard 3 shots and you heard other shots, and you were like in that situation, you don't know what's happening yet. And he did leave himself physically vulnerable. He's not known as an altruist, but do you think that might have been part of it? Tennessee State Representative Hardaway, and then I'm going to pivot to everybody else on the panel.
I think you hit it on the head. He was still politicking in the middle of this crisis. Instead of going along with the protocols of the Secret Service, letting them protect him to get some type of assessment and then to resolve the danger, getting him to his vehicle, he had everyone's life at risk. If there had been more than one shooter, he exposed himself again. If there had been more than one shooter, he would have gotten Secret Service agents killed. If there had been more than one shooter, it's likely that additional spectators and attendees would have been killed. It was selfish. And I know this isn't going to go well with some folks who want to be kumbaya today, but I believe that Donald Trump is still Donald Trump. He's not going to change. He's going to morph every now and then so he can get reelected. He knows what his cult following wants. And I think the strategy of the campaign is to turn them out. I don't think at this point that he's looking to change or persuade any independents to come his way. I don't think that he's doing anything but trying to churn turnout. So that's what I think about Trump. I think that we're in a new norm to where the image and the speed with which individuals get information, I think all that matters when you're looking at political strategies. He mastered that moment. There's nothing that's going to compare to him standing there with the blood and the American flag flying behind him. But my concern is those people who were there, who were endangered, and that period of danger was extended because Secret Service didn't have the power to move him along. I'm going to review with my TBI and with and our troopers on Capitol Hill. I'm going to review with them, how much power do you have when you're assigned to protect someone and they don't cooperate? Can you force them to move along and abide by the dictates of the men and women who are in charge of the safety of not only, I'll repeat this, not only of the principal, but also of those in the surrounding area? That's the problem that I have with the way that all of this is played out. And now we're supposed to believe that he's had a change of heart. No, he's had a change of strategies. And if we fall for it, then we'll get what we deserve. And that's Donald Trump in another presidency. I think that we need to be concentrating on the issues. I think we need to make sure that we get turnout so that we will wake up the day after election and say that we have saved democracy. Some folks are backing off of whether he's an existential threat to democracy. His actions say that he is. He's told you what he's going to do. That 2025 project tells you what he's going to do. So no, I'm not going to cower in the face of the political and public scrutiny away from talking about what's important, talking about the truth. And if we don't talk about the truth, our people will be misled, and we're going to find that we wake up the day after the election and we'll be in big trouble, not just us, but our children and our grandchildren for generations to come.
Well, D-Ray says Trump is lucky he's not in a casket today. He even said that himself. Robert Williams said that mainstream media is trying to low-key act like this whole thing didn't start with Trump shenanigans. Michael Brandon said, perfectly stated, Representative Hardaway. And Robert continues, people are expendable when it comes to an ultra-narcissist like Don the Con. And Carol Soskin concurs, yes, sir. Robert then goes on to say that the Secret Service told him the threat was neutralized before they picked him up off the ground. He's still a fraud, and I'm not fake kicking it about sympathy for this evildoer. And John says, John Holloman says, no matter what, this was a strategic game changer, and that's what we ought to talk about, the implications therein. I hear you, a change in strategy. Because let me tell you something. You're dealing with people who are masters of political manipulation on all sides. You are not going to become really essentially. President Biden has been the most powerful man on Capitol Hill for 50 years. You can't do what he has done. He had a lock on his Senate seat. He had a lock. Then he became vice president. I mean, all these people are masters of the game, and they're all coming together, Republican and Democrat, on the same strategy, which is what's interesting. I've got Robert Patillo back here. Let me bring him in before I, pivot to everybody else. What is your overview of all of this, Robert? I got about 10 minutes left. I'm enjoying you guys today. This is great. I don't have to say a thing.
Look, I think that the American people, after 100-ish years of being lied to by their government, are rightfully skeptical of the story that is coming out about this shooting taking place and some of the inconsistencies that exist thus far. And I'm hoping that the nonpartisan investigation into this helps to clear those things up. Why haven't we seen any video from the left side of the stage, for example, where the actual shooting take place? We have the straight on view. We have the right side view. We don't have any video of the left side. There were thousands of people there recording. We don't have any videos from behind President Trump at the time of the shooting to indicate what happened. The stills that we have seen and the slowly down video shows President Trump reaches up and grabs his ear after ostensibly being hit, and his hand comes back clean without a drop of blood on it. His collar doesn't have blood on it. We see a bullet fly by his head in the New York Times photo, but we don't see blood splatter coming from that bullet. meaning that that bullet did not actually make contact with him. People have these questions on the internet, and after being lied to about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, being lied to about the COVID response, being lied to about the JFK assassination, on down the line, people are rightfully skeptical. So it's going to be a bipartisan effort to bring real results and real stories forward, so that people understand how this can take place and how we can stop it from taking place going forward. And just a little bit of info for people who are not shooters. For example, a AR-15 shoots a 223 bullet, 5.56 NATO. That bullet is around 55 grains out the box. We're using just
Wait a
standard
minute.
ammo.
Now you lost me. I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay.
Okay. He's going to give us a. Oh, thank you. Nice.
Okay, so
Robert?
this is an AR-15 bullet. It's this big. That is all that it is. This is the part that goes out of the gun. This part right here. That bullet is about 55 grains. A grain is about 1/15 of a gram. So we're talking about a very small, very lightweight bullet that generally has an effective range of 200 yards at maximum, 300 yards with a 16-inch barrel if you have a 1-in-7 twist and probably a scope on it. However, if you're talking about shooting from a distance of nearly 200 yards in this case, an AR-15 bullet drops about 1 inch for every 100 yards that you're shooting, and that drop is logarithmic as opposed to exponential. So it's not as if it goes 100 yards you drop by 1 inch, 200 yards you drop by 2 inches. It's 100 yards you drop by 1 inch, and then you lose enough energy that by 200 yards you drop 5 inches. So at 167 to 170 yards where the shooter was located, you're talking about 2 to 2.5 inches of bullet drop. So if you're aiming dead center in the middle of someone's head, then by the time the bullet drops, you're dropping to about nose level or about even at the top of the ear. So we're talking about someone who's aiming a very clear, direct, middle of the head, clear shot. At the time, if you listen to the video, you're hearing the wind buffering the microphone. I believe it was a level 2 wind advisory. So you're talking about 4 to 7 miles per hour wind, which on a 55 grain bullet is going to cause about a 20-degree angle of deflection if you're a shooter at that range, which is going to put you right at about where the ear is located. So when we're talking about the shot that was made by this shooter, this is a professional shot. This is a shot that you would expect from someone who either has military training, who has police training, or who's been an avid hunter their entire life. And it just so happens that President Trump turned his head at the right time, and the wind blew, and you had the bullet drop necessary for it to contact his ear. I want everybody to take their right hand and just glaze it over your ear, and think about how close that bullet has to come to touch the top of your ear. And realize that at that point in time that there should have been singeing on President Trump's hair when it went past. And in the photo from the New York Times, you can see there's a trail behind the bullet. It's not just simply the bullet you see, it's about a foot-long trail. What that is the bullet going through the transonic range, where you have enough air pressure in front of the bullet where it creates a cone where it's piercing through the air, and then the water in the air condensates around it, and that's what creates that streak. The reason that it's significant is if a bullet goes by your ear at supersonic speeds, which we know from the picture, then that's going to explode your eardrum immediately. There's no way around that. You're dealing with both a shock wave, a pressure wave, and the sound of the bullet. Your eardrum explodes. There's no other way around that. And so people rightfully have questions of, well, how exactly did the bullet come this close to your head and not make contact with any of the skin, any of the hair? Why was there no blood on your hand when you reached up and pulled it down until you went to the ground? Why is it that somebody who was thrown off their high school shooting team, this came out this week, that he was thrown off his high school marksmanship team because he couldn't hit anything? And then we're saying that this is the 20-year-old that took a professional level shot by just a couple centimeters, did not kill the president. That's one thing that people have questions about. Secondarily, if you look at the video from the side, above the president to the right are counter battery snipers. So we're talking about a professional trained Navy SEAL, Secret Service, military sniper who have a direct line of sight on that building. Part of the reason I think that that building was unguarded was that they believe that they had counter battery fire that would be able to monitor that area and also take any shots prior to something taking place. All of these events now also have drone coverage over top, so they would have seen this individual on the drones crawling up the side of this building. And at that point in time, they would, as we saw with some of the witness statements, if they see this person on the building with a gun pointed at the president in time, that you have snipers there with far better rifles than AR-15s to take the shot. There's no way that that shot takes place. There's no way that he gets not just one shot off, but between 5 and 8 shots off during that period of time. So that means that the military snipers took so long to shoot him that he was able to get 5 to 8 shots off very accurately towards the president of the United States. There are valid questions there. We have to stop saying that if people disagree with the official narrative, that they're conspiracy theorists, that somehow they're these tin hat people who believe in a flat earth. They're just physics questions at issue. If you draw a straight line from where the shooter was located straight to where President Trump was standing, and even if you compensate for the angle of President Trump's head, unless that bullet is curving or if it's a magic bullet, then the contact that took place would have gone through the ear and then through the back of the skull at that angle. Mm-hmm. This bullet just magically went over the top of the ear and then curved off to the right. Like a changeup. People have legitimate questions about this, and we have every reason not to trust our government on these conversations. And I think that we're going to hear far more about this going out. And we have to put this in the context of the current political season. We just witnessed what I call the petty coup attempted against President Biden, where unnamed individuals and unnamed sources, party insiders and donors essentially try to overthrow the U.S. government led by Stephen Colbert and the Hollywood elites and George Clooney. This sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly what happened, where everyone tells a sitting president of the United States he needs to step down from office because they said because he was old and sick. Then when that didn't work, they said, well, your poll numbers suck, so you need to step down. Then when that didn't happen, we started seeing donors withholding tens of millions of dollars, backbench Congress people coming forward. This is a coup attempt. That is how coups work in most countries. When Mussolini took over Italy, he just walked into the Capitol with his forces. There was no gunfire. There was no military intervention. When Hitler took power in his coup, all that he did was he was elected chancellor, and they changed the Constitution to give him more power. It was a bloodless coup. When Napoleon took power after the French Revolution, they gave him 1 year as a dictator to put down the revolution. He needed a second year. By the third year, he locked the legislature in the Chateau de Saint-Cloud and basically took power from the other consulates in order to put himself in power. A bloodless coup. This is a coup that we saw. I think that we can't ignore that we had an attempted coup against one presidential candidate and an attempted assassination against another presidential candidate, and everyone is supposed to just pretend that it was just a lone wolf 20-year-old who happened to climb to the top of a building unseen by Secret Service and police, except it was in plain view where people had cell phone video of him doing so, and then shot a magic bullet that was able to curve. And then President Biden went through an attempted coup that we've never seen in American history, and all that's completely disconnected from the American political system. At the same time, we have two amazingly unpopular presidential candidates. The American people have gone through enough that we can smell things when they stink. And this is one of those things that stank in American politics. And we have to really put together the type of nonpartisan investigation, determine what happened in both cases, because this seems like the work of an outside actor. This seems like the work of an outside government that is trying to not just influence the U.S. election, but change the results of the U.S. election. And we have many international actors that have exactly that motive to do so, and now have the opportunity. When we talk about those online bot farms, think about the information that's coming out against President Biden during the petty coup. We saw massive amounts of misinformation coming out on a daily basis. 25 Congress people are going to come out against Biden today. Nothing happened. Mark Warner is meeting with U.S. senators to demand the removal of President Biden. Never happened. We're going to see the inner circle, and President Biden is considering resigning by Friday. Didn't happen. The Biden family is huddling at Camp David to determine the transition. Never happened. And these things all went through our major U.S. news and press as foreign misinformation that we could track, but yet and still they were reported directly to the American people as fact. But people who have sources inside knew that it was all made up, or as the young people say, that it was cap. So we really need to be looking into this election, because we are in a place that is very similar to 1968. Democratic convention in Chicago, Democratic convention in Chicago. President being pressured to resign, president being pressured to resign. Amazingly unpopular Republican challenger, in that case Nixon, in this case Trump. Olympics coming up, well, with racial tension taking place. You remember the Carlos and Tommy Smith? We have the Olympics coming up in Paris, where people are defecating in the River Seine because they don't want the Olympics there at the same time of social unrest. War with this proxy war with the Soviet Union, proxy war with Russia. Everything is building up to be a very cold summer and a hot winter. And I think we have to be more cognizant of the things about us, or we can continue living in Mickey Mouse land and just believing what the federal government tells us. But I think the American people are past that point.
Well, what a way to wrap up the first hour of the Santita Jackson Show. How about that? And everybody, you want more of this? Go to the second hour, click the link, the Santita Jackson Show. Of course, Robert is on, Attorney Robert Patillo, WAOK, every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time, 1 to 4 p.m. Daryl Jones, Attorney Daryl Jones, talking about our vote and politics with Attorney Barbara Arnwine on WOL every Tuesday at 12 noon. You got to find out about that. But let's keep on talking, everybody. Let's keep on talking. And of course, Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson every Sunday on the iHeart Radio Network from 7 to 9 Central Standard Time, 7 to 9 a.m. Yep, we're live, but we're live here right on the Santita Jackson Show. Everybody, let's switch on over. I know you got to leave us, Attorney Mark Fancher. Attorney Mark Fancher, I literally have about 30 seconds for you. Go.
No, I just, in light of all of the things that Robert just said and everything else, I think that we have to come to grips with the fact that America is not the place for people who are people of goodwill. And we do need a beloved community that needs to separate itself from it and to build a new way. We are capable of doing it. I think that instead of spending a whole lot of energy focusing on a rotten system with a lot of rotten people in it who don't mean us well, that we ought to focus on building something by people who do love each other and who do want something good for the world. It's not going to be found within this society, within this country, within this system. Revolution is the way forward.
What say you, everybody? Go to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. We'll be back in just a minute as we talk about the Trump assassination attempt and all that it means. Boy, Robert Patillo, you're going to open up the second hour because I want you to break down what's happening with the bullet, because people have a lot of questions. And in this post-JFK assassination world, no one believes the official narrative. There's just a lot of doubt. Elected representative, you disbelieve it. I mean, everybody's like, what's going on? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.